There's a Baal Shem Tov story. It was discovered that there was going to be a tremendous plague on the children in the town, the area where the Baal Shem Tov was, or the plague had already begun, and it was revealed that it was going to be very severe. So the Baal Shem Tov called for a day of fasting and prayer. So all the people in the whole surrounding area, they came to the synagogue, the big synagogue, and the women were in the women's section, the men were in the men's section. And the Baal Shem Tov said, start reading Psalms, Book of Psalms, 150 Psalms in the Book of Psalms. And we're going to read them and supplicate God like King David did, and for a healing for the children. So, of course, everybody had already fasted the whole day before this. And they were, of course, heartbroken that these children were getting sick and even worse. And they said, read the book of the Psalms. They finished the first book of, they finished the book of Psalms once. And the Baal Shem Tov announced the decree still stands. We have to read it again. So they read the book of Psalms again. And so it was the third time, the fourth time. People now were wailing, they were crying. The children were becoming ill. They didn't know what to do. Rega can't rakshna. And after they finished reading the Psalms the fifth time, and they had begun the sixth time, the Baal Shem Tov the sixth time, now people were really crying and wailing, especially those who had children, even those that didn't have children. After they had finished reading about 12 Psalms, so the Baal Shem Tov turned around and said, the decree has been rescinded. God took the decree away. The children will all be healthy from now on. There's not going to be any more worry of a impending disaster. You can all go home and eat. So everyone went home. They were all happy and they were dancing and singing, and they all went home to finish the meal. It was already late at night, 3 a.m. The Baal Shem Tov's pupils came to the Baal Shem Tov and asked him, can you tell us, was there some sort of a Kabbalistic reason they read the Psalms 5 times? They got up to whatever is the 30th Psalm, whatever Psalm they got to. Maybe there's some sort of a Kabbalistic connection. So the Baal Shem Tov said, go and ask Grandma Sarah, Baba Sarah. Baba Sarah was this old Jewish woman. She was maybe in her 90s. She barely knew how to read. So they went to her house, and she was sitting there drinking a cup of tea, breaking her fast. And they said that she saw the pupils there, the Baal Shem Tov. She stood up, brushed herself off, said, what do I owe this honor of such holy people coming to my house? So they said, the Baal Shem Tov sent us that you should tell us what was the secret, why the decree stopped. So she said, I know why the decree stopped. How could I possibly know anything like that? I just went and I prayed with everybody else. He said, but did you do anything special? Anything special that after we finished reading the book 5 times and there were 30 Psalms that you did? She said, well, listen, I'll tell you the truth. I did do something special, but I'm a little bit embarrassed. I don't really want to say it. So they said, please, you have to tell us what it is. So she said, okay. Said, I heard the decree of the Baal Shem Tov, but everyone had to fast. And there was something with the children I didn't exactly understand. So I went to the synagogue and I prayed with everybody else. Said, no, to read the book of Psalms is very, very hard for me. It's hard for me to read it, and I don't even understand one word. But I read. She's talking to them like in Russian or Ukrainian, whatever it is. Yiddish, maybe Yiddish. So she said Yiddish. So she was speaking to them Yiddish. That's it. So she said, I don't really understand what the words are. So after that, I heard everybody crying and wailing, and then crying again, and we had to start again. But after about 5-6 hours of this, and everybody's like really crying. So I asked the woman standing next to me, I said, what's going on in here? Why are we fasting? Why is everyone crying? And she said, well, there's a decree that the children are all going to get sick, and it's a fatal disease they're all going to get. It's a terrible plague that's going around, and we're praying to God to stop it. And so I said to them, that's why everyone's crying? And they said, yeah. And she said, yes. I said, for 5-6 hours, everyone's crying. So why, you don't think children are enough to cry about it? said, okay, I understand. So I went over to the corner where no one was around. And I said, listen, God, I'm not going to read this book of Psalms. I don't even understand what I'm saying. I'm going to talk directly to you. I said, I spoke to God. I said, listen, God, I know that the most cruel person in the world are the Cossacks. The Cossacks. A Cossack can come into a town and kill 100 people, no problem. Kill people, trample people. No. But that same Cossack, if his son falls down, he comes home, let's say, and his child falls down and cries, he'll get off of his horse and he'll pick his son up. He'll help his son. He said, now here all the Jewish people, they're all crying and they're crying to you. You're their father and you don't come to help them. Are you more cruel than a Cossack? And all of a sudden I heard the Baal Shem Tov turn around and say, the decree has been lifted, and everyone was happy. And so in other words, to talk to God like we talk to a person, genuinely from our heart, is a very valuable thing. Not to say that the Psalms are not valuable, and not to say that the prayers that have been written in the Siddur are not valuable, but a lot of times when we read those prayers of King David, we don't have the same genuine desire of King David to alleviate all the problems in the world. But this woman, she didn't understand the Psalms. But she did have a desire that the problems should stop. And that genuineness is what saved the day.